I've seen a lot of debate over who's actually winning the Olympic medal count, and that's because there's so many different ways to count the medals, and a lot of them counts don't include a weighted average. But the great thing about knowing how to use spreadsheets is I can just build a counter myself, and that includes a weighted option. If you haven't seen the full overview and all the features of the medal counter, make sure to go back and watch my other video because this is the full tutorial on how to build it. The first thing we want to do is go to Google, and we want to find a website that has a full medal count that's updated consistently. And we want the table to be pretty basic. If it has a bunch of drop downs and things like that, it may not work. This one with ESPN looks good, so we're going to copy that URL, and we're going to go to our spreadsheet. And in cell A1, we're going to type equals import HTML, open parentheses, in quotes, we'll put that URL that we just copied. Then after a comma, we'll type the word table in quotes. The first time you sync it, it will ask you to allow access. Go ahead and press allow, and then you'll see the contents of that table flow through directly into your spreadsheet. And the best part of this is whenever that website is updated, the data that's in your spreadsheet will be updated automatically as well. Now this isn't perfect. For example, we have a country that looks a little bit off, and that's because it's having the 3 digits of the icon name mixed with the actual country name itself. So the first thing we want to do is get rid of those 3 digits. So over here in column G, I'm going to type in country. I'm going to type equals replace, select the country, put a comma, 1, comma, 3, comma, blank. And what this will do is it will start with the first character in the text and then go 3 over, and it will replace that section of the text with whatever we tell it to. So we're telling it with a blank. If I were to type new instead, it would replace that first 3 lines with new, but we want it to be blank, that way it's just the full country name. Now I'm going to go ahead and extend that formula down to the rest of the rows, so that way we have just the list of countries. Now later on in the tutorial, we're going to build a dropdown based off of this list, and right now they're in no specific order. And that's going to be confusing later on when we try to select that country from the dropdown, since there'd be no rhyme or reason to where it's located. So to the right in column H, I'm going to type country. Then I'm going to type equals sort and select the range that contains all the countries. Then after that, I'll put a comma, select that range again that contains all the countries. Then put a comma, then put true. And what this will do is it will sort that entire range in alphabetical order, ascending. And ascending means starting from A, going all the way to Z. Next, we're going to select column F, and we're going to insert 1 column to the left 2 times. And we're going to add some more data here, but before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and select columns B through E, click the little line in between, and make those a lot smaller. Not quite this small though, so we can still be able to read them. In column F, we're going to add the weighted calculation. So I'm going to type equals, open parentheses, B2 times 3, close parentheses, plus open parentheses, C2 times 2, close parentheses, plus, open parentheses, D2 times 1, close parentheses. So we're weighting it where each gold is worth 3 points, each silver is worth 2 points, and each bronze is worth 1 point. And that's a pretty fair way to weight things in my opinion, so that's why I went with it. Next up, I want the flags. What's the Olympics without flags? So if you go to our website, we have all the flags right here. We can right click on one of the flags and say copy image address. And we're going to import this directly from that website. So I'm going to type equals image, paste that URL in quotes, and now I have the American flag. But I don't want to keep going back and forth on the website and copying each specific image URL. But if you notice here inside the URL, it says USA, and that's that same exact code that was brought in as part of the country. So we're going to make this dynamic. So instead of having USA in that text, we're going to actually extract the USA from the country name and use the new details as part of the original URL. So to extract it, we'll type equals left, select the cell that we're trying to extract, then put 3. So this will extract the first 3 characters of the text from the text block that was selected. So as you can see, we have USA. Now we don't need to separate this, we can actually build this in the formula. So I'm going to copy that formula. I'm going to delete the USA within that URL. I'll put a quote, ampersand, paste that formula, ampersand, quote. And those ampersands act as a join, so it's going to take the contents of left and place it right in between the 2 text strings on each side. So as you can see, our result has not changed, but if I click on the fill handle, now we have the new image address for every single one of the countries, but we never had to go back to that website again. And to me, this is super cool. This won't always work. There has to be some sort of naming convention that you know, but when it does work, it's amazing. I'm going to rename this column flag, and that's all we need. Now to make things a little bit cleaner, I'm going to select columns A through J, go to Format, Alternating Colors, and I'll select this yellow alternating colors, and now everything looks a little bit more clean. And next we're going to add a new tab, and I'll go ahead and drag that to the front. And here's where we'll put the actual counter itself. So I'm going to go ahead and select columns A and B and make those a little bit smaller. Then I'm going to go down to cell C4 and type equals query, open parentheses. And then back in our data tab, I'm going to select cells A1 all the way through the end of column H. Then after a comma, inside quotes, I'm going to put select H, comma, F, order by F, end quotes, and close the parentheses. And if you know SQL, this is going to look awfully familiar, and this is just Google's version of SQL essentially. But once we press enter, we'll have a list of all the companies with the weighted medal counts right next to it, and everything else is excluded. Now I want to create a visualization, so I'm going to go ahead and select column C4 all the way through the end of column D. Go to Insert Chart, and then under Setup, I'm going to select Map. And this will give me a map of the world. I don't like the color scheme that's going on here though, so I'm going to go ahead and click Customize. Then I'll open up Geo. I want the max to be a gold color since we're going for gold here. I want the minimum to be a brownish bronzes color. And then I want the mid to be silver since silver's in the middle. We'll leave no values as blank, but we're going to go up to the chart style and I'm going to change the background color to a blue to make it look like water. So now we have all the data for each of the countries, and you can hover over the data to see the exact numbers. And there's a color scheme based off of where they fall on the spectrum. So that's how to build the map. Now we're going to select cells C through D, go a little bit past again, and we're going to format this to make it a little bit cleaner. So we'll go to Format, Alternating Colors. We'll use that same yellow as last time, then hit Done, and we're good to go. Now we can't forget about those flags. We want to bring those flags in here. So in cell B4, I'm going to type flag. And then in cell B5, I'm going to type equals Xlookup. And my search key will be the country. We'll put a comma, go to our data tab. I will select column H as a lookup range, comma, G as a return range. Then we'll put a comma in blank. That way if nothing's found, it will be blank. And I'll drag that formula down to the rest of the table. In cell A5, I'm going to have a rank counter. So we're going to do an automatic counter. We'll type equals sequence, open parentheses, count A, open parentheses. Then we'll select cell C5 all the way through the end of column C. And now we have our ranking, and if another country is added later on, it will automatically increase by 1. Now these two columns don't have the same color scheme, so I'm going to go to Format, Alternating Colors, and change it to start as A4 instead of C4. So now everything is nice and uniformed. In column A4, I'm going to type rank, and make that column a little bit bigger so we can read it. Then I'm going to select all of the headers, make it bold, and make it one size bigger. Now right now we have the query in cell C4, and it's bringing in both country and weighted, but I actually want to have this a different name. I want to be able to name it as medal count instead. So I'm going to adjust the query range to start at A2 instead of A1. And I'll copy that formula down to C5 instead. I'll fix the formatting, and now we can have our own stagnant headers. So I'm going to type in country, and I'm going to type in medal count. And lastly, I'll need to update the formatting, so I'll make it bold and one size bigger. So now our medal count table is all good to go, and we're ready to add the dropdowns. In cell C1, we'll type medal sort. Then we'll select D1, go to Insert, Dropdown. And then we want to have the different options. So we'll have gold, and we'll make that this yellow color. We'll put silver, and we'll leave this as this gray color. We'll put bronze, and make that brown. Then we'll put total, and we'll make that black. And lastly, we'll put weighted, and we'll make that blue. And if you want to name these something else, you're more than welcome to. Just remember what you named them because we'll use these with our nested if statement later on. So now when you click the drop down, you should see every single option you put in the color that you put it. So now we want to update this formula so that the query is different based on the selected item. So for example, if we have gold selected, we want to show the data for gold as opposed to weighted. So we're going to copy the query. Then after the equal sign, we'll put if, open parentheses, is blank, open parentheses, select cell D1, comma, comma. And we're going to do more, but we'll press enter right now just to show an example. So as you can see, D1 is blank, so that's why it's blank. But if we put anything there, the formula populates. We'll go back into the formula to continue. After those two commas, we'll type if, open parentheses, D1 equals weighted, weighted in quotes, comma, and we already have the weighted query, so we're going to go ahead and just use that same query, close parentheses, comma, if D1 is equal to, in quote, gold, comma, we'll paste that same query, but instead of having HF, we want to have HB because B is the column where the gold is. So we'll change that to HB and order by B in descending order. And we're going to keep going, but just as an example, I want to show you what we've done so far. So right now, gold is selected, so it's showing the data for gold. And if we select weighted, it will show the data for weighted. And like before, if it's blank, it will be blank. Now back in the formula, we're going to go ahead and copy the whole if statement that we need. And then after that if statement, we'll put a comma, paste that if statement, and we're simply going to change gold to silver. And then we need to adjust the columns. So instead of HB, it will be HC. And order by C, because C is where the silver is. And we're going to do the same thing over and over again until we get to the end. And at the end, it should look like this. So we have if is blank, we want it to be blank. If D1 is weighted, we want the weighted formula. Gold, the gold formula. Silver, the silver formula, and so forth. And once you press enter, you should be able to filter through every single one of the options in the dropdown and see a different metal count each time. Now just under metal sort, we're going to type country. Then we'll select D2, go to Insert, Dropdown. And we're going to use the Criteria dropdown. We're going to change this to Dropdown from Arrange. Select the 4 little boxes. Then we're going to go to the sheet and those countries that we have in alphabetical order. We're going to select all of those, then hit OK. Then we'll hit Done. And I'm going just past the text. That way, if there's any countries added later on, they'll still be included. So now in our dropdown, we have a list of every single country that has won a medal so far in alphabetical order. Now I'm going to select cells A5 all the way through a little bit past where we have all of our data. Then go to Format, Conditional Formatting. And under the Format Rules dropdown, we'll select Custom Formula Is. And we're going to build a formula related to the first row of the table. So we'll type equals $C5 equals $D$2. So what this is saying is if the country in column C matches the country that's listed in the dropdown in D2, then it will turn the entire row the color that we select, which I'm going to make a background of blue and a text of white. Then I'm going to hit Done. So now I'm going to select an option, let's say Australia. It will automatically highlight that entire row. And if I select a different option, let's say Canada, it will automatically highlight that row instead. Now if we don't have a country selected in the dropdown, technically towards the bottom, everything is listed as blue, and that's because technically the country is blank. But that's messy, we don't want that, so I'm going to click into the original formatting rule. I'll click Add Another Rule to duplicate it. Then on the dropdown, select Is Empty, and put both the fill and the text color as none. And then I'll click and drag that rule to the very top, then hit X. So now, if it's blank, it will be blank and there will be no formatting. If it's not blank, that's when the conditional formatting will apply. And when you select a country, you'll be able to see exactly where that country is located on the medal count. So for example, we can select the United States, and we can see that they are winning in total. And when we select a different sort, we can quickly identify whether they're in first, second, third, last, whatever. So everything's working properly. Now I'm just going to add some more formatting. So I'm going to select both medal sort and country and make the background yellow. And select those 4 and add some borders. So I'll select all borders. Then I will select just the outside borders and make that slightly bigger. And I'm going to do the same exact thing for all of our table that we have for the actual medal count itself. So I'm going to select all borders and then make it small. Select just the outside borders and make it slightly bigger. So that's it. Now we have our medal count tracker where we can have the weighted option, we can have gold, we can sort by whatever we want. And it's automatically updated based off of the data that's in that website. Hope you liked this video and follow Shoots by Olin for more.